let's then, for now, move on to Ruddy, as Karim already mentioned, founder and CEO of Muse Africa, and he will tell all about the Participate campaign, Choose or Lose, which was set to the Ghanaian youth, and the slogan. No doubt, Ruddy will tell us way more about this all. So, Ruddy, please take it away.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, just trying to change the slide. We just have an electricity cut, so on our but we're making it. We're still there.
Fingers crossed. And let me make use of this moment to also announce once again the Google Doc, where we will collect questions. So if you have any questions regarding the presentations, feel free to write them down in this Google Doc. And then Andre in Benin will communicate these questions to the relevant guest speaker.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can I go now?
Slide? Yes.
Okay. So just thank you guys for inviting us here. My name is Ruddy with Muse Africa. Our original vision actually was just to create a certain campaign that would be part of the election conversation. What we wanted to do was try and zero in on what the youth of Ghana would say or would want to be said in the election. I think what we ended up doing was way beyond the vision that we set. By numbers, we're inspired by the fact that the voting, almost 50% of young people between ages of 18 to 34 years form a huge part of the voting bloc. That showed us that the youth of Ghana have a certain power, and in fact, they are the deciding bloc. But what we, from previous elections, we had discovered was that the politicians just co-opt them for their numbers, and they really never have any meaningful contribution or conversation around the issues that will be raised, that will be voted for. So with this at the background, we thought that we were going to zero in, use tools, digital media and our platforms to just conversation. But the chance conversation of meeting the team from Oxfam shaped the whole thought into something much more meaningful. I mean, when we were integrated into the whole Ghana Decides project, we saw the magnitude of the opportunity and also the impact that we could make. So we chose the word participate simply because it's self-explanatory. We wanted young people find some way somehow to be part of the election campaign. If we can go to the next slide. Find one way. We were not even shaping that, okay, you should drive policy, you should drive the conversation. No, we were just be part of the conversation. And that was really our key driver. But it turned out to be so much more powerful word that we chose. And we also wanted to make the politics and election look cool, because in our parts, it's very uncool. You've got it's very segmented. You've got an intellectual class that are speaking out the big English and expressing big policy, and then you've got the implementation class, which is a lot of noise and misinformation. Each party throwing mud against each other. So the net effect is that nobody necessarily communicates anything, but it cuts out, and the youth they are left in the middle, standing there and looking, okay, what's happening here? So then their vote or their decisions are based on things other than policy. It becomes, where are you from? Is the party affinity to you? They choose things that we don't want people to choose. So the vision then became that we want to be able to drive that conversation, make politics super cool, and also use a call to action. That's why it says choose or lose, that we have a stake as young people in this conversation, either choose or then we'll have the net loss because we form a big voting block. So we used obviously music, high value entertainment, television, all of that to drive it. The millennials, as we know them, drive themselves. These are the targeted attitudes. They take risks, they are self-confident, culturally very diverse. They have an opinion and social media has made them possible to express it, whereas traditionally those opinions cannot be expressed because we have a very ageist society and culture around here. I mean, until you are at a certain level, you are not allowed to have a say in the conversation, and it's very prevalent around here. But social media cuts through all that clutter and makes them go. My next slide, please. Hello? Yes, so the campaign was non-partisan, which was one of the things that we needed to establish immediately. That, please go back. One step back. Yes, the campaign was non-partisan. It was multi-layered, and we have to establish that because what has happened with previous election was the two big parties would scramble for celebrities, artists, musicians, influencers for the youth and get them to join their ranks. And they use that to actually co-opt the youth vote. So you would have a party, a political party throwing a concert, releasing music. You will have endorsements from all these celebrities, you know, which are not done on conviction, but they were a lot of times they were paid engagements. So the celebrity themselves that is lending their influence is getting, it's a job for them. But they are going out there and convincing massive numbers of youth to join without necessarily checking what's the policy, what do they stand for, are there net gains in, you know, what's the message of this party? No, for them, it was a paid engagement, which is like any other thing that, you know, they have. And we drew on our online TV and radio presence to put things together, to push the campaign. And again, we wanted to make sure we educated, informed, and compelled young people to respond to the call to be politically conscious. So we focused on education, health, and jobs. Three key things for young people. Obviously, because they are in school, we want quality education. When you come out, you want a gainful employment, and you want a healthy society because most young people are dying left, right, center. So that became our focus, our focal point. If you go to the next slide, our key messages for the election are there. Good. So participate in election 2016. We wanted it to be like, this is your civic responsibility as a young person. You are not being ordered, you are not being paid, but you are being entreated to be part of it. So we use things that stirred up that emotion for them to be there. We pushed on, you know, the narrative of it's our land. You choose or you lose. It doesn't matter. We are not saying choose party A or party B or C. You have to be part of that solution or you are part of the problem. And sometimes these were very harsh and extreme realities, but they started to get an understanding that indeed we have a stake in this conversation. So those messages which were used on radio, in our adverts, on TV, on TV, in our conversations and our music programming, online, on our social handles and social media, and on mobile with messaging that was sent through, they consistently focused on these 8 points that are there. That was the place. You have to be part, or then you are part of the problem. Either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem, which seems a little extreme, but that's what worked. So the next slide will show you the layers of what we did. From television, radio, music, merchandising, events, social media. Now let me take music. Music, we went ahead and partnered with EL, who you'll be hearing from a little later. He had just won the Ghana Music Awards Artist of the Year for 2015. He was the biggest actor of his time. He's a producer, a writer, what do you call it, a fashion designer. He had that cool effect. And we partnered with EL. He wrote, produced, and got 10 other artists to come to the table for us to write a national song. And the conversation was not about everybody getting a fee, which is what the politicians and the political parties would have done. Everybody came without a fee. They wrote a song, put it together, and that became the soundtrack of our campaign. For TV, we organized town hall shows where they were packaged for television, so we got the political class involved. we sat down with one political, one of the presidential candidates. Unfortunately for us, we could not secure the two top political, the incumbent at that time, and now the winners, the current party in power. And one of the funniest things that happened at that time was they were both afraid of each other. So when we approached the incumbent at that time, they will ask us, have you talked to the leading opposition? Where are their questions? Share that with us, and then we'll give you a date. Then you go to the opposition and say, we want to have a conversation. And then they will ask you, have you talked to the incumbent? When they do this and you can confirm it, let us know. And you know, Karim made a point about the manifestos. The manifestos of both parties delayed because nobody wanted to put DS first. Before then, you are either accused of plagiarism, you copy. It's the same thing that went into the campaign. It's the same thing. So we kept getting the toss about, but nonetheless, we reached out to youth elements within them and got the youth wings to actually send, send participants to our town halls. In Takoradi, the third largest city in Ghana, we got an opposition MP. Rather, the incumbent MP refused to come. The opposition MP now is the current winner in parliament. He came, he made a big show of it. He's a young lawyer. He joined us. In the north, the biggest artist of the north, in northern Ghana for the last 5 years or so, he was there. We went to town, we did a rally, and then sat down and did a TV campaign. Same thing in Kumasi. We got the artist that actually won Album of the Year, Hip Life Artist of the Year, Floki. So yeah, to be part of it in Kumasi. So we had regional balance on also in terms of even selecting the and the 2-3 artists that did it. Only one actually appeared on the soundtrack. So we also went out of the soundtrack to actually even engage more acts when we get on the ground. Then for events, we partnered again with EL, and through a massive concert that attracted about 10,000 people at one of the malls. It was a free event. Again, about 17 acts or so performed during the night. Every one of them came on their own volition, and that message was actually called the One Ghana concert. And essentially, we used the symbolism of that was using Ghana's 1 CD note. That's what EL did. It says, look, when a politician comes at you, just remember that he's only give you the money, whatever he gives you is only grandly equal to 1 Ghana CD, and it's nothing more. So you need to think about peace. And everybody went on preaching a peace message, because again, the politicians will co-opt the youth to actually foment trouble. So we achieved that. On TV, we got 3 different channels to actually air the... Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes, okay. So on TV, we got this flighted between 3 different channels. So they took their campaign up, drove it. We got a radio partner with one of the biggest media groups here, Live FM, also partnered with us to actually run campaign messaging. On social media, which is our place, we were creating video content, sharing messages from all the town halls, engagements on that. The only part that I think we didn't push massively enough was merchandising, getting t-shirts out. We did just a few for the concert. But at the end of the day, because we had achieved about 95% of all the layers that we wanted to, and we set up a mobile channel where actually people were getting, messages. On the day of election, we also sought to drive voting. So we created a hashtag called Flex the Vote, and which was simply this. You go to vote, we want you to take a picture of your thumb, because it was actually against the law to photograph your ballot paper and post it where you're voting to share. But you take your photo of your thumb after thumbprinting, and then you share it on social media. And we had a massive response across Ghana for people, young people, just going to the polls, flexing the vote. Those who couldn't vote were actually, we went to escort somebody to vote, and that was all part what you call it, part of the conversation. So if you go to the next slide, if you go to the campaign slide, you see all the elements, the various elements and the platforms that we used in the campaign. I think there's some. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Roland?
I think the slides have fallen away.
Yes.
Magali, I'm not sure if you can still hear us. Actually, looking at the participant list, I don't see her anymore.
But we can continue. Yeah.
That's good. And let me, in the meanwhile, try actually to share the slides myself, and please continue, Nabil.
Yes, I think that was great. Okay, fine. If you can display it, otherwise we are displaying ours here and speaking to it. No, I will show you what you. Okay, so that's. Or you are thinking about
Can you see the slides? Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've now put the slides up, so I hope you can see them.
Yes.
So
okay.
Next slide.
Yes.
Okay, so Ruddy, you still have things you want to share, or?
Yes. So
okay,
I mean, this is a couple of pictures from the town hall. The first picture was actually our very first town hall at the Viasat studio, where we hosted. There's one of the leading technology entrepreneurs, a young man and 35 or so.
The one in the red tie.
Yeah, the one in the red tie. He actually came, spoke around, a very vocal in our space on tech. We had a radio, Kuja Kutubak, the one on the extreme left, actually works with the leading radio station, City FM. He's on their morning show. So all of them turned up for the town hall conversation. And I think Karim was with us when we launched the campaign itself. And then we met. The third picture is actually us with the presidential candidate for the CPP. That's the party of the founder of Ghana. Is he still founder of Ghana? The party of the founder of Ghana. And then these are a couple of pictures. The next slide actually shows a couple of pictures from the voting day, the concert, the One Ghana concert, and then the day of voting itself, the campaign we created for the Flex the Vote, where people are supposed to actually, display their thumb, take a picture of their thumb after voting and share it on social media to influence other young people to actually turn up for the polls. And we started to actually see action right at when polls began. So which means a lot of young people usually would have been, would have played late and gone a little later, but we started to see action an hour into voting. We started to see that our hashtag was actually, we trended for the day actually. We were number 1 for 3 hours, and then, but we're in top 5 for the 24 hours. We're in top 5 trends, but we're for 3 hours in the afternoon when voting was actually on. We were number 1 for 3 hours with Flex the Vote hashtag. So that's a summary of the campaign.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruddy, for this very interesting perspective of the campaign, the participate campaign. Very interesting to hear all the various key activities that you've done and your view of the results that have been made. Initially starting a bit small, youth becoming a part, but actually growing way beyond that. I think making elections cool, I think that is definitely something that other countries, I can imagine, struggle with, or it's one of their aims in terms of including young people in the election. I've heard it's so nice to see the key messages, how action-oriented they were. If you don't choose, you lose. If you don't decide now, someone else will for you. Very interesting to see these key messages. I wonder, Andre, I'm unable to see now the Google Doc, but I wonder if there are any questions that have come in so far.
Hi, Ronald. There's no questions yet on the Google Doc, nor on the chat, the Zoom chat.
Okay, no worries. And I see we also still miss Magali, but I hope she will join soon again. Perhaps before we move to the next presenter, perhaps one question that we can reflect upon is the combination of the various methods that you use, so music, events, social media, Twitter. You already went into, of course, how they reinforced each other. I was wondering if you perhaps have some more insights you can share about, for example, one key methodology that you think of. Actually, if we didn't use this one, the event would have not been, the activities would have not been successful. Or perhaps an example of like some very clear ways that the various methods actually reinforced each other. Because I think for many colleagues and partners, like they are exploring multiple ways of working, and then they're always interested to see, okay, what appears to create effect. So I was wondering if you could share your insights perhaps on that. And I see that Magali is by the way also back.
One of the learnings we got was whatever it is that you do on digital, it needs to have a physical touch point, because it's so easy for you to create that, but if it's not steeped in reality, if the concert didn't happen, if the music didn't happen, if the town hall didn't happen, and we just original idea was to just sit on social media and make noise, the impact, yes, you would have gotten some engagement, but you can't touch a physical comment, because from the campaign, from those physical moments, we have voices on record. We had a presidential candidate that we spoke with. It wouldn't have happened if we just kept everything digital. So I think from our learnings, whatever we do on social, it needs to have a certain physical touch point and to actually complete the impact that we would want. That's something that we would want to reinforce even a lot more coming. Obviously, you also can't, we also saw something. The digital lit up for non-residential Ghanaians during that period. There's a tendency they can hijack the conversation from where they sit, and that we have a very strong, non-residential Ghanaian. The news that they consume and what they put out is actually totally different from what the residents put out, because they look at it from what has been summarized on news sites. We look at it from the reality and we had to actually die, because the ruling party had deployed a team from London who were actually curating news for young people from London. So the outlook was totally different from what is relevant here. And what's relevant is always going to be bread and butter issues, rather than how cool one presidential candidate looks, or a policy or one policy over the other. We have a practical touch point to that, because when you speak about violence, we know what the violence is. It's close to you. Whilst they will look at it from a different angle. So we have to also guard against that. And I think in future we would even use a lot more local engagement. We also noticed that I think regional balance is essential and crucial. By spreading the influencers into going to Kumasi and picking, say, Flo Kingstone, who's a big artist from the second biggest city, made the conversation relevant to that space. Using one of the biggest artists in the north, made the conversation relevant to that space. And then you have your EL, who's a national influencer, taking the whole thing across to everybody else. And I think that actually supports it, because if we had not had EL driving it, and we had just used, say, our regional what you call it, influencers and talents, the conversation may not percolate up. It would have not joined, it would not have seen any relevance on the national scale. So that also, I think, is something that you always need to kind of balance out. Regional balance is key, but you must watch it that you have somebody that can carry the weight of it to the national space, that your impact will be high.
Okay, thank you so much. Very interesting perspectives, no? The online and offline combination, something we actually hear a lot, that the combination works, but also that it's most of the time it's also a necessity actually to move just beyond the online action. And the regional balance, very interesting then with one national focal point, if you will. Very interesting to hear, for example, how that influenced the variety of young people participating from all across Ghana. Great to take another look at this during the debate. Also, for example, the types of young people. What were their backgrounds, for example, that were included.